Welcome everybody. Let's start with the class today. Namo Orientanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pava Panasano, Mangalanancha Sabbe Sim Padamam Havai Mangalam, Namo Orientanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pava Panasano, Mangalanancha Sabbe Sim Padamam Havai Mangalam, Namo Arihantanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pava Panasano, Mangalanancha Sabbe Sim Padamam Havai Mangalam. Veera Sarasura Surendra Mahito Viramuda Sanskrita Virena Bheta Swakarma Nichayo Viraya Nityam Nama Vira Tirthamidam Prautamatulam Vira Shikhoram Tapo Vire Sri Truti Kirtikanti Nichaya Sri Vira Bhadram Disa Kamathe Dharanendra Cha Sochitam Karma Kurvati Prabhustulya Manovritti Parshvanath Sri Estu Vaha अंगूठे अमृतवसे लप्तितणा भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये मनवांछित फलदातार भुवसगहरं पासं पासं वन्दामि कमगणमुखं विसहर विसनिनासं मङ्गलकल्याणावासं विसहर फुलिङ्गमन्तं कंठे धारे जोस्यामणो तसगहरोगमारिडठजराजन्ति उगसामं चिट्ठौ दुरिमन्तो तुजपणामवि बहुफलो होय नर तिरिये सुवीचिवा पावन्ति न दुःख दोगचम् तुह समत्ते लत्ते चिंतामणिकप्पाय वभये पावन्ति अविघ्नं जीवाय रामरं ठाणं ये सन्थो मायस पतिभर निपरेण येण ता देवदिज्जबोहिं भवे भवे पासचिणचन्द. Okay, welcome everybody. We progress with the story of Bhagwan Parshvanath's previous lives, and we are moving forward. Last week we left off with the ending of the seventh life of Bhagwan Parshvanath. The king Vajranab and then the Muni Vajranab, and we ended with the point where, as a monk, he has come to a point and where the meeting with Kamat's life happens in this life is what we are going to learn about today. Let me share my slides with you all, and then we'll finish the story, and then we'll have time for discussion and analyzing the story and answering any questions that may arise from that or any other questions. Anybody has got a burning question from last week that you want me to address before we start with this week's class? No? Okay. Okay. So this is the life of Vajranab and Kurangak. Vajranab is the soul of Bhagwan Parshvanath. Kurangak is the soul of Kamat. His name was also Kamat in the first life that we started the story with, Marubhuti and Kamat. After completing the long lifespan in the 12th heaven, the soul of Marubhuti took birth in Subankar Nagari, located in the western Mahavidaya Kshetra, at the powerful King Vajravirya and Queen Lakshmivati's place. The parents named their son Vajranab, who in just a few years' time grew up to be a valorous king. As we learned last week, in this life, Bhagwan Parshvanath Ji soul actually takes Diksha under the auspices of a Tirthankar Paramatma, whose name was Kshamankar. One day, Tirthankar Paramatma Kshamankar's Samvasran was set up in that kingdom's garden. King Vajranab very joyfully goes to listen to the Tirthankar Paramatma, and because this is something that he had been wanting to do to progress his life spiritually, and he thanks his stars for having the opportunity to meet a Tirthankar Paramatma and then listening to the beautiful deshana of the Tirthankar Paramatma. The king instantly experienced dispassion, and handing over the kingdom's responsibility to his son, he took Diksha from the Tirthankar Paramatma, from the Lord. He left for the jungle and did a lot of religious meditation there. I've extracted this from very brief description of the story from the one site where I get pictures from, but just something that you might find very interesting to listen to is the description that M. Chandracharya gives in his narrative of Bhagavan Parshvanath's life in Trisasya Shalaka Purush Charitra. What he says to the Tirthankar Paramatma after his listen to once he gets to the Samvasara. પ્રભુને વંદના કરીને તેમની અત્યુત્તમ દેશના સાંભળી દેશનાને અંતે અંજલિ જોડી તેમણે પ્રભુને કહ્યું, હે ઘણા કાળથી ઈચ્છેલા વ્રતનું દાન કરીને મારા પર અનુગ્રહ કરો. ઘણા કાળથી ઈચ્છેલા વ્રતનું દાન, meaning that for a long time I have been desirous or I have desired to become a monk. Vrat, એટલે to take the vows of a muni. Vratnu dan, so please give them to me, or dan karo means donate them to me. Dan karine mara par anugrah karo, meaning please bless me with that. બીજા ઉત્તમ સાધુઓ જેવા ગુરુ પણ પુણ્યથી જ પ્રાપ્ત થાય છે, meaning any other guru is only available with a lot of punya. Any guru is available only with a lot of punya. However, for me to have a guru like you, a Tirthankar Paramatma, that suggests that I must be very fortunate. તેથી હું વિશેષ પુણ્યવાન છું. દીક્ષાની ઈચ્છાથી મેં હમણાં જ પુત્રને રાજ્યાભિષેક કર્યો છે. So he has just come to the Samvasran after having crowned his son a king in preparation for this moment. માટે હવે દીક્ષાનું દાન કરવા રૂપ તમારો પ્રસાદ મેળવવાને માટે હું તત્પર થયો છું. So I am now free of all responsibilities and I am here to become your disciple. So please make me your disciple. Give me diksha. આ પ્રમાણેના વજ્રાના રાજાના વચન સાંભળી દયાળુ પ્રભુએ પોતે તરત જ તેને દીક્ષા આપી. તીવ્ર તપસ્યાને કરનારા તે રાજર્ષિએ પણ શ્રુતનો અભ્યાસ થોડા કાળમાં કર્યો. So he became very well versed with all the knowledge that he needed to conduct a very progressive spiritual life. અને ગુરુની આજ્ઞાથી એકલ વિહાર પ્રતિમાને ધારણ કરતા. So in those times, these days this is not allowed, but in those times when Muni reached a certain stage of development, then he was given permission to stay on his own or his or her own to further conduct their spiritual progress on their own. So that's called Ekal Vihari. So they would not move about with the rest of the Muni Bhagwans. They were allowed to then go out on their own individually. Not everybody did, but some did, and only with the permission of the Guru if they saw that this would not harm their spiritual development. એકલ વિહાર પ્રતિમાને ધારણ કરનારા અને તીવ્ર તપસ્યાથી જેનું શરીર કૃશ થઈ ગયું છે, so he conducts very severe penance and his body becomes very very weak or very thin. એવા તે મહર્ષિ અનેક નગર વિગેરેમાં વિહાર કરવા लाग्યા. અખંડ અને દ્રઢ એવા મૂલોત્તર ગુણોથી જાણે બે દ્રઢ પાંખવાળા હોય તેમ તે મુનિ અનુક્રમે આકાશ ગમનની લબ્ધિને પ્રાપ્ત થયા. એક વખતે આકાશ માર્ગે ઉડીને તપના તેજથી જાણે બીજો સૂર્ય હોય તેવા દેખાતા તે મુનિ સુકચ્છ નામના વિજયમાં આવ્યા. We'll come to the details of what that actually means at the end of this talk today. In the same jungle, one angry Bhil, Adivasi, named Kurangak, who is Kamat's reincarnation, was passing his life doing hunting and killing all creatures in the jungle. While he was passing through the jungle, seeing the Muni engrossed in meditation, he gets furious and in his anger, he hit an arrow at the Muni and killed him. While Vajranabh Muniraj breathed his last, he had no ill feelings towards Kurangak. Somewhere you will find the name just shortened to Kurang. Trisasya Shalaka Purush Charitra gives the name Kurangak. Vajranabh Muniraj, being in tremendous religious meditation, reincarnated in the Madhya Gaivek Devlok as Lalitang Dev. Kurangak's rebirth then happened in the seventh hell, where one has to go through immense suffering for a very long period of time. That's a picture of how that particular scene played out. I suppose for depiction purposes, the artist has drawn the two in close proximity. From the description, it seems that this wasn't so obvious. It wasn't such close proximity. There was probably a fair distance between the two. So what is described here, Kurangak the soul of Kamat, also anyone in this life is responsible for the death of Vajranab, is the soul of Bhagwan Parshvanath. And as a result of all the bad karmas, the pap that he accumulates, he is born in the seventh hell, whereas Bhagwan Parshvanath's Jeev, as a result of his increasing spiritual awareness and progress, is born in Madhya Praivek Devlok with a very long lifespan. Just a recap: Bhagwan Parshvanath, life 1, Marubhuti Kamat, life 1, Kamat. Life 2, Bhagwan Parshvanath's Jeev, elephant, Kamat's life as a snake who is responsible for the elephant's demise in this life as well. Life 3, Bhagwan Parshvanath's Jeev is in Vaimanik Dev, and Kamat's Jeev from the life of a snake to Narak. Life 4, Bhagwan Parshvanath's Jeev as a Vidyadhar, that is somebody with great powers, and becomes a king born in a royal household with all the trappings of that. Kamat's Jeev as a large snake, a python, who in this life as well becomes the killer of the Muni Kiran Veg. Life 5, Bhagwan Parshvanath's Jeev in 12th Devlok, Achyut Devlok, with a long lifespan of 22 Sagrupams. Kamat's Jeev in the 6th Narak, 6th Hell, with a similar lifespan of 22 Sagrupam. And this life 6 and 7 we are talking about today, Vajranab, the king, as Bhagwan Parshvanath's Jeev or Bhagwan Parshvanath's soul, and Kamat's Jeev as Kurangak, a cruel Bill. Bill is sort of an Adivasi kind of lifestyle who have only learned how to earn their living or sustain their life by killing wild animals. Kurangak is a cruel bill hunter. Bhagwan Parshvanath Jeev in the following life is born as Lalitang Dev in Madhya Graivek Devlok, and Kurangak, that is Kamat's soul, is born in the seventh hell. Just got about 2-3 slides just to highlight certain points that are apparent in this story. Vajranab was born in the western Mahavide of Jambudvip, in the city of Subankara, which is in the Sugandh Vijay. The monk Vajranab acquires the power of flight, Akasgamini Vidya, as a result of his ascetic practices. Once he flies to the Sukach Vijay of this Mahavide Kshetra. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this is these two Vijays, Sugandh Vijay and Sukach Vijay, in the Mahavide Kshetra of this Jambudvip, where we are. So we are in the Bharat Kshetra, which is southern to the Mahavide Kshetra, which is in the middle. The Mahavide Kshetra is divided into different Vijays, and each Vijay is like a separate world. So one Vijay is as big as Bharat Kshetra or bigger, and they are very separate worlds. But this Muni Bhagwant having acquired the power of flight, Akashgamini Vidya, is able to travel from one world to another. And from the Sugandha Vijay, where he was born and had become a monk, he once flies to the Sukach Vijay of the same Mahavidya Kshetra, which are basically a world apart. Kamat's soul, following his life in the sixth hell, is born as a human in the forests of Dwalangiri in the Sukach Vijay. So fate brings them together across worlds like this. His name in this life is Kurangak. He is a Bill, a hunter, and earns his living by killing many animals in the forests of Dwalangiri. In time, the Muni Vajranab comes to the same forest of Swalangiri, as we just learned that he has acquired the power of flight, and he once flies to that place because fate is leading them to each other. And on a fateful day, as the sun set and the night began, he is standing in meditation in this forest. This is how Hemchandracharya describes this scene in the narration of Bhagwan Parshvanath's life in Shalaka Purush Charitra. The atmosphere and the surroundings are frightening because it is a deep, dangerous forest where he has chosen to go to meditate. There are dangerous animals around and all kinds of bird life, which is also dangerous, making fearful sounds. The Muni stands there in meditation, not frightened at all, not worried at all about what is happening. He is completely lost in meditation and completely at peace with himself. Vajranabh Muni is steadfast and calm and oblivious of the dangers around him and at a total peace within himself. In the morning, as the sun rose, the Muni starts walking. So he's moving from where he was standing in meditation the whole night and then moving away. Kurangak, the hunter, with his bow and arrows, is in the forest to hunt. He sees Vajranabh Muni from a distance. Now, this is what goes on in his mind, that this is a bad omen, that early in the morning, I'm seeing a Nirgranth Muni. So instead of being happy, being worshipful, recognizing the spiritual uh, greatness of this person, all he sees is a person who he thinks is a bad omen for him, having seen somebody like this early in the morning, and just imagining the kinds of thoughts that might be going on and the background of what his constant state of mind is on seeing somebody who is absolutely calm, peaceful, who is not at all threatening to anybody in any way. He sees him as a bad omen, and his mind is telling him to get angry at this person and to do something to get rid of him. Now, it's all as a result of the accumulated hatred and anger that keeps on resurfacing again and again. This makes him angry. As a result of the enmity bred over many lives, Kurangak shoots an arrow in anger and cruelty towards Muni Vajranabh. Muni Vajranabh is injured fatally but retains his equanimity and sits down on the ground and bows to Aryans and Siddhs. So, recognizing that his life is coming to an end, as Jain Dharma teaches us, we should always be prepared to face death because it's inevitable. And the preparation for death as to how one can ensure that our death, which is certain, is peaceful and is something during which we do not accumulate a huge amount of bad karma, but in fact use those moments to get rid of any lingering thoughts of enmity, feelings of hatred towards anybody, attachment to all the worldly things that we are inevitably going to leave behind, and completely detach ourselves from everything outside and focus totally within oneself. So Muni Vajranabh bows to Aryans and Siddhs and asks for forgiveness of all his past sins and takes a vow of fasting to death. So he knows now that he's been wounded fatally, that he's not going to survive this. He has no desire for running around seeking some uh, treatment so that he may live long to find somebody. He is absolutely resigned to the idea, but not depressingly resigned. He is resigned with a very positive attitude that it is inevitable and I need to prepare for my passing because this is obviously not the end. And he decides that I now give up all food. So he is taking a vow of fasting to death. So unsan, that is called unsan. He asks for forgiveness from all life that he might have harmed or hurt anytime, anywhere in the past. He dies peacefully in a state of equanimity with no enmity towards any living being, and particularly not engaging any anger or dislike or hate towards Kuranga, his killer. So remaining completely detached from somebody who has shot him for no reason and not feeling unhappy about it, not feeling any hatred towards that person, not even focusing on him. He dies peacefully, and in his next life, his soul leaves the body and is born as a dev called Letang in the middle Gaivek Devlok, which is one of the highest Devloks. Kurangak Bill, on seeing that he had killed the Muni with his one arrow. Now, again, this is an example of how karmas accumulate and become stronger and stronger. Having killed a Muni with an arrow, he has no regret. What he is thinking is that I am so strong. He is proud of his strength and rejoiced in his cruel act. Now, all that would ensure that his karma of having killed a Muni gets multiplied and gets stronger to such an extent that there would be no escape from it and would guarantee him a life in hell for a very long time. Having spent his whole life earning his living by killing innocent animals, he eventually dies and is born in the seventh hell in a place called Rau Narkavas. So in Narak, in hell as well, there are sort of separate areas or lands uh, which have different names. So this particular one, Hemchandracharya uh, gives us a name for that place, and it's called Rau Narkavas. That is the sixth and the seventh life of Bhagwan Parshvanath and Kamat. We don't have long to go before we come to Bhagwan Parshvanath's actual life, and we'll start off that in probably about 2 or 3 weeks. And that will then take us over several weeks to describe in detail about the life of Bhagwan Parshvanath. Any questions? I'm going to stop sharing now. As I said, we'll have a bit more time today.
Uh, Ajitbhai, I have one question.
Yeah.
King Vajranath, he got Diksha from Tirthankar
Shamankar.
Shamankar.
Yeah.
Was the Tirthankar in Mahavir Kshetra before us, before the 24 Tirthankars which were here? Or
Probably a long time before that. Exactly how long it's difficult to say, but if you look at Bhagwan Parshvanath's life, exactly which particular time it was in relation to our time, it's difficult to say. I'm sure that there are references of it somewhere, and Guru Bhagwan somewhere might be able to tell us. But in terms of, say, for example, the current 20 Tirthankar Paramatmas who are alive in Mahavidya Kshetra at the moment were all born around the time of Kunthunath Bhagwan of our time. And they will all go to moksha sometime in the next Chovisi in our time in Bharat Kshetra. And they all have a lifespan of 84 lakh Purva, meaning 84 lakh Purvas, all 20 of them. Exactly when or who Kshamankar was, when he was around, I'm not sure. If anybody in the group knows about that, then maybe can answer that question. But chances are that it was within this current Osarpini time cycle, because if you look at the lifespans of Bhagwan Parshvanath in the various Dev bhavs, we are probably looking at about in total 70, 80 Sagropams or more, something like that. And we must remember that the whole of the fourth ara in our time cycle, when all the Tirthankars were born and achieved Nirvana, was the total length of that ara, including the fifth and the sixth ara, is 1 Koda Kodi Sagropam, which is a huge amount of time. So if you're talking about 80, 90, 100 Sagropams, and I'm just guessing here, but just putting the various long Devlok lifespans together, we are not looking at a huge amount of time. So exactly when that was, it's difficult to say. In Mahavidya Kshetra, the reason I mentioned the Vijayas, because each Vijay can have a Tirthankar Paramatma separately. So at that time, Kshamankar Paramatma Tirthankar was in that particular Vijay. There could have been a different. So as we learned, he was in the Vijay of Sugandh, and Vajranabh Muni then goes to another Vijay called Sukach. It is possible that at that time in Sukach Vijay, there might have been another Tirthankar, because they are basically separate worlds. And in total, there are 5 Mahavidya Kshetras, each with 32 Vijayas, and each could have a Tirthankar Paramatma at the same time. So in total, we can have 160 Tirthankar Paramatmas in Mahavidya Kshetra simultaneously, and along with one each in the Bharat Kshetra and the Airavat Kshetra. So 5 and 5, 10. A total of 170 Tirthankar Paramatmas can coexist together in these different worlds. And this happened in our Chovisi at the time of Bhagwan Ajitnath. And I mentioned this before, so most of you probably remember this. just in that context. So again, in answer to your question, I don't know exactly when, but my presumption is that it wasn't too long ago.
Thank you.
Anybody, why are, okay, from T, okay. Sorry, T stands for? Krishna. Okay, welcome, Krishna. You see, in this day and age, it is quite hard to maintain one's spiritual awareness and progress when one is isolated from the other Muni Bhagwans. And that kind of Ekal Vihari is not allowed in this time because there are dangers. And one gets to the point of becoming a Muni with great difficulty in spiritual terms. And one doesn't want to lose that chance and lose the path when there is a risk. So there is a much greater risk in this day and age. And even in those times, not everybody is actually given permission to travel on their own. Only those who are considered to be so developed and so prepared would be given permission. So in this day and age, the reason for refusal would be that, and the reason that it is not allowed or recommended is that there is a great danger of becoming, of getting lost, because one's spiritual development and to maintain that in a singular format, when you are single and on your own, is very difficult. You need to be very highly developed spiritually to be able to do that. And here, when Muni Bhagwans live together and travel together, there is a constant vigilance on each other's development. There's a constant vigilance on looking after each other, ensuring that nobody is losing the path. And the presence of a guru is extremely important. And the Sishya's devotion to the guru and following what uh, they are instructed to do is also extremely important. I mean, a lot of us have heard of the story of Stulibhadra and the other monk. Do you all know that story? You heard of Stulibhadra and how the the permission to spend the first Chomasu, the first 4 months, in the palace of Kosha, a Nartaki, a dancer, with whom he had spent a life of deep love for many, many years. The guru actually gave him permission to go back and spend 4 months in her palace. And when another Sishya who had spent 4 months outside a lion's cave and conquering his fear of the lion coming in and going out from the cave on a daily basis, with a Muni standing right in front of the entrance to the cave, and not being frightened or worried about the fact that the lion might one day decide to rip him and kill him. He has conquered that fear. And when they both go back to their Guru Bhagwant, after having finished their 4 months of the rainy season, the Chomasu Aradhana, the Guru Bhagwant gives the blessing to Stulibhadra as saying that you've done something which is extremely difficult. And he tells the other Sishya who spent 4 months in front of a lion's cave, saying that you've done something which was difficult. And his praise for Stulibhadra is obviously much greater than the praise for this other Muni Bhagwan. And the Muni Bhagwan feels aggrieved, jealous of this difference, and he thinks that he has done a greater deed, having conquered his fear. But the Guru Bhagwan thinks otherwise, and he thinks that Stulibhadra was very easy. He spent a life in a palace. And he attempts to duplicate that, to do the same thing in the next Chomasu. His Guru Bhagwan tries very hard, knowing him and saying that you are not the person who is ready for this yet. I wouldn't give you permission. He refuses permission. But the Muni insists and insists, and then the Guru Bhagwan realizes that fate has decreed that this is going to happen, and he doesn't then argue with him. And the story goes on that this Muni Bhagwan then loses his way in such a drastic, major fashion when Kosha, who is now a Shravika, decides to test him and then challenge his virtue. And the Muni Bhagwan fails terribly. So there's a whole big story about that. I'm sure many of you know about this story, but we can talk about that at some stage. Any other questions?
Ajitbhai, can I ask, you've said that all our Tirthankars are from royal households.
Really? Yeah,
Because
always.
when Bhagwan Mahavir was a fetus, he was transplanted.
Yeah, yeah.
So why is that? Why is that?
Basically, a Tirthankar's Bhagwan's life mission is to set up a tirth. The purpose of setting up a tirth meaning that a path to revive the path to moksha. Setting up a tirth is setting up an institution that will survive thousands, millions of years. So if you look at the time span between Rushabdev Bhagwan and Ajitnath Bhagwan and the other Tirthankars, we're talking about millions of years. Setting up an institution and reviving that institution. So that institution of Chaturvid Sangh, of a tirth, of Sadhu, Sadhvi, Shravak and Shravika is eternal. But every Tirthankar comes into being to revive that for the benefit of all souls, for the sole purpose of getting more and more people to follow the path to achieve ultimate happiness, that is of moksha. Now, to be able to do that, the punya that they need to be that influential starts off with their status of where they are born. So no matter what we say or what we feel, in all times, royalty has a status. Even in our times, when we have sort of officially done away with any powers of the royal households in any country, they still hold a very big place in people's heart. So our press keeps on talking about the royal household all the time. Everybody knows about them. So their influence and whatever they do has got an impact on people. So first of all, a royal birth has by virtue that power. So in terms of setting the scene for the effectiveness of a Tirthankar Paramatma. That is one thing. The powers that they are given from the time of birth is also another aspect of the punya that they've acquired. The service of lakhs and crores of devs at all times, and the devs being present throughout their lives, and everywhere that they move, they've got this pratiharya, which would be a great sight. So if you look at the uh, descriptions of all those 8 pratiharyas, so whenever Tirthankar Paramatma, after having acquired Kevalgnan and sort of come to the point of fulfilling their destiny of that Tirthankar Nam Karma being in full bloom at that time, they are then accompanied by this Pratiharya. The Devs create this samvasaran. So Tirthankar Paramatma doesn't sit in any ordinary place. They always sit in a samvasaran, which is specially created for this wherever they go. And that samvasaran has its own sort of superb architecture, but also made of extremely valuable material. And the graves are in constant attendance. So all that is part of Tirthankar Nam Karma, and being born in a royal household is part of that magic that then attracts ordinary people, all people, and say, this is something great. And once we enter that, then if our time is right, then just that meeting of Tirthankar Paramatma, or meeting with a Tirthankar Paramatma, having seen them in person, can be transformative to people. And there are many examples of that, that a person's life is changed having been there. Unfortunately, not all of us are able to use those moments. So it is very likely that all of us have been to a Tirthankar Paramatma Samvasaran many times before. But we have not always progressed spiritually from that point onwards. But whenever the time is right, that itself could be a huge trigger to help us progress spiritually. So from all those reasons, the material circumstances around Tirthankar Paramatma's status, being born in a royal household, is part of that material circumstance, which is as a result of great punya that they have acquired. Hope that answers the question in some ways.
Yes, it does. But it's also true that they have a lot more to give up, isn't it? Because when they're born in a royal household, they have so many riches and stuff. And
Absolutely.
so when they give up a lot of stuff.
But you see, those riches are valuable to us.
I know.
But so, for example, there was in one of Rakesh Bhai's talks when he was here at the time of Diksha, I think about a year ago, uh, he asked this question: that was the sacrifice of Bhagwan Shantinath, who was a Chakravati, and he gave up all the trappings of a Chakravati, and the sacrifice of Bhagwan Mahavir, who was an ordinary prince. His brother was the king, but Bhagwan Mahavir was in the royal household as well. Which sacrifice was greater? So when we look at it from the material point of view, obviously a Chakravati, having given up the emperorship of the whole world and all the other trappings that go with being a Chakravati, materially has sacrificed a lot more. But we look at it from that material point of view. A Tirthankar Paramatma's soul is completely devoid of attachment to any of this, no matter how big it is. So to us, all that we see as being royal household, it impresses people around, obviously, and we would look at it that way. So there are stutis which describe that Santinath Bhagwan gave up the life as a Chakravarti. And we understand that, but to the Tirthankar Paramatma themselves, that means nothing. But I see the point you're driving at. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question? Can I ask you a question to think about for the next week? And maybe a few of you to come back with an answer. Do I have your permission?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Who said that?
Captain.
Okay, Ketan, good.
Yeah.
And Bijal, okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you. But this question is for everybody, not only those people who said yes, okay?
Good.
If we start thinking about who we are and where does our life exist, and this question comes to me from what I listened to from Param Pujya Panyas Labdhi Vallabh Vijayji. He kept on hammering about Jivan Suche, what is life? Where do we see our life? What do we see our life in? And the subject, as he then explores it, leads us to a very obvious realization that our total focus on what we consider to be life is actually the opposite of what it should be. So the question is, where is life? What is life? And that may lead on to other questions in your mind. So whatever you come up with as an answer, write it down if you want to, but I'll be grateful if maybe some of you can give us a short narrative about that. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ajitbhai, can I ask
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a very silly question.
No, don't worry. There's no silly question.
All these souls that have achieved moksha,
Yeah.
are they aware of each other?
Absolutely.
Connection between them?
Absolutely. Complete, not just themselves internally, but about every other soul, everywhere in the universe, including us. So
Mm-hmm.
every Siddh Paramatma, every Tirthankar Paramatma, every Keval Gnani who has Keval Gnan is totally, constantly aware of what's happening to not just every soul, but to every atom, anywhere, or every Parmanu, every particle of matter, anywhere in the universe, and not just what's happening to it at the moment, but what happened to it in the past and what's going to happen to it in the future. So their awareness, the soul's fundamental basic quality are two. And this is something that I was reading early this morning and I've taken it out. I thought we might read this, but you asked the question that allows me to bring this in.
That's good.
Okay. Uh, આત્મ શક્તિ સ્વરૂપ છે. So the soul is power. વ્યક્તિ સ્વરૂપ છે, meaning it also exists in a form. દ્રવ્ય રૂપે શક્તિ સ્વરૂપ છે. So in its basic element, it is power. પર્યાય રૂપે વ્યક્તિ સ્વરૂપ છે. So as a manifestation, it is a વ્યક્તિ. આત્મદ્રવ્ય શક્તિ સ્વરૂપ હોવાથી દ્રવ્ય ભિન્ન ભિન્ન ગુણનો આધાર હોવાથી અનેક શક્તિ સ્વરૂપ જણાય છે. And there are two main shaktis, so two main powers. And this is the crux of the matter. ચિદ શક્તિ અને આનંદ શક્તિ. ચિદ શક્તિ બે કામ કરે છે, જાણવું અને જોવું. So the fundamental basic quality of the soul is to know and to see. And that is the quality of the soul. It doesn't have to make an effort. That is there. So in other places, it's described as if everything in the universe is just reflected on the soul, and the soul is aware of everything on a constant basis. So Janvu and Ju, and the other Shakti is Anand. Anand means joy, bliss. And that is described as Jin. Sorry, Virya Shakti Rup che. Virya means power. Again. So every soul in its free state is aware by virtue of being the soul, we all have that power. But that power is currently subdued, hidden, not visible, not expressed, because of the karmas that we have accumulated, and the king of all those karmas is Mohniya karma. And the fundamental strength of Mohniya karma is to make us disillusioned, meaning make us unaware of who we are. So the moment the soul acquires this awareness of its own self, not just by virtue of words but by virtue of an experience, I am now something different from the body that I identify myself with. And every soul in the free state in moksha has got these fundamental qualities, but also an infinite number of other qualities. But the fundamental quality is bliss, happiness, and whatever happiness we feel in a limited form, which is all limited because it comes and goes, is partly a manifestation of this fundamental quality, but it is deluded because we are seeing happiness in things that do not have the power of giving us happiness. And those things themselves feel nothing because they are not life. We are life. I've given you the answer to the question, but you will give it to me back in your own words next week.
Yeah. So what is life and how is life?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Is there one more question? Okay. Shall we bring this to an end today?
Yes.
Any comments, Bharatbhai, Bijalben?
Ajitbhai, I have just not, maybe it's quite silly anyway, but તમે હમણાં ઓલું કીધું કે મરુભૂતિનો next ભાવ હતો એમાં third one, I suppose, के महाविदेश क्षेत्र में क्या था. That was quite interesting because I didn't realize કે કોઈ હતું. તો બીજા તીર્થંકર મહાવિદેશ ક્ષેત્રમાં ગયા છે? એ લોકોનો જન્મ ત્યાં.
Yeah, I mean, every soul, we have all traveled all over. So us being born in this Parakshetra does not mean that we would have been born in many lifetimes in this Parakshetra, because all of us have traveled throughout the universe in all different kinds of life forms, and our journeys through space, the universe, our Shastra says that there is no place in the universe that we have not touched by being born in. Meaning the whole Chaudrajulok, every space that is there, we have been there. So us having been born in any of the Mahavidya Kshetras and any Tirthankar Paramatma or otherwise, all of us would have been all over the universe. Because we must remember that when we are talking about the life of Bhagwan Parshvanath or Bhagwan Mahavir, we are only talking about a small section of their lifespan of their lives from the time that they achieved a level of emancipation, that is, since they achieved Samyaktva. All the lives prior to that are not counted. But all Tirthankar Paramatmas are special souls anyway. Not any ordinary soul becomes a Tirthankar, but their hidden power or their hidden virtue only manifests when the time is right, obviously.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, we will end today's class. Thank you all very much. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of our Dharma, our Tirthankar Paramatmas and Guru Bhagwans, I ask for forgiveness. जिनाज्ञा विरुद्ध कहीं पण बोल्यो हो ते सभी मनोचन काय करे तस्मिच्छामि दुक्कडम सर्वमंगल मांगल्यम सर्वकल्याण कारणम प्रदानम सर्वधर्माणाम जैनम जयति शासनम. Thank you all very much.